was just going to ask if they were going to let us have an extra almost 15 minutes since we didn't get...
Probably not. We'll have to ask to start over. I don't know if they'll allow us or not.
Okay.
Oh.
Are they?
Okay, that's what he said. Okay.
Dr. Buzz, let me bring you in on this conversation. What's your initial reaction to these tapes?
Well, first of all, you can see the grandparents are really trying to use different strategies to try to evoke information from their daughter. They want to know where their granddaughter is, and they try different strategies. If we look at all the tapes together, you can tell that at one point, the grandfather is using humor to try to evoke some more information. Clearly, the grandmother is pinpointing certain areas, trying to get to her daughter to get more information. It's interesting how we view this, because we would speak, if we were in there, we would want to be offering information. We would want to be having a dialogue. We would try to be looking at every single thing and finding any resource we could to find where your daughter is. You know, I can't tell you the amount of families I've worked with who've lost their daughter. Their son has disappeared, their grandfather has disappeared, and they want that media attention. They want to be working with the media. They want everybody that they can find to help them locate their son, their daughter, their father, their mother. Here it seems like there's so much hesitation coming from this individual. She seems to basically keep her trap shut. She doesn't want to give any information, and it kind of screws our perception of how we think a mother should be acting.
Well, clearly, you think that her baby has gone missing. You would be freaking out,
yes.
Screaming almost. And that, I guess that's my question to you from a psychological point of view. After a certain amount of time, does that sort of crazy passion wane or not? I mean, I can't imagine the opposite.
The grieving process never really stops. And if you feel that your child, your son, your daughter, your father, your mother is still alive, still out there, wanting your help, it never ends. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us emotionally volatile, is because we feel powerless. We don't feel we're in control, and we're trying to find solutions. That's what makes us who we are. A son, a daughter, a father, a mother, we would be searching in every shape, form, or fashion, and we would want the media, we would want strangers, we would want our grandparents to help us find where our child is. It's just human nature. That's why this is so puzzling. That's why it's such a mystery, is it doesn't seem to follow the usual human dynamics.
Dr. Buzz, is it healthy for children to be in a home where there are cameras and videographers, you know, 24/7, or indeed big chunks of the day recording their daily lives?
Well, we want to bring children into the first and foremost that they need support services, and children need to feel loved, and they need to feel care, and they need to feel protected, and they need to feel that their caregiver is there first and foremost for them. I work in guardianships. I work with parents often who have diminished parenting skills. When we look at OctoMom, we do have those concerns. We wonder if there is not an emotional impairment there. We do wonder if she's placing her children first and foremost, or she is placing herself in front of them because she needs this sense of fame, and she has this image of herself with all this grandiosity that she needs to be a celebrity, and her children then are their tools.
So
children can't be a tool.
Buzz, let me come over to you. The first sign that we have that police are in the house actually comes during the 911 call when the first officer arrives at the scene. She finds the child with the phone in his hand and, of course, makes the obvious assumption that this kid's playing around with the phone. He's called 911 by accident, or maybe even having heard the numbers, played around with it. And she assumes the parents are sleeping upstairs. The tragedy, of course, is that they've been terribly murdered. This is a 2-year-old, Buzz. What is the impact on the psychology of this child going forward? Of course, any child losing his parents at this age and becoming an orphan, that's traumatic enough, but then you add the violent nature of the death. How much will he remember? How much should he be told, and when?
You know, it's fascinating because here we're talking about the ages between 2- and 3-year-olds, and there's a vast difference between what a 2-year-old is capable of and what a 3-year-old is capable of. In terms of the phone, eye and hand coordination does develop very rapidly between the ages of 2 and 3. And in that situation, it depends on what the parents were able to model for the child. In terms of visually seeing the parent's death, we don't know, because at 2 years old, there may be a memory, but it could be a pocket memory. Of course, as the child gets older, people are going to inform the child, people are going to tell the child, and he may plant those memories of what he thinks he saw at age 2. It also depends on where the child is placed after the murders.
Yeah.
If he has love, if he has power and a perceived control within his life, if he feels that he is in a safe, secure environment following these, I tend to be very optimistic, and I believe the child then can progress and develop normally.
So, Dr. Buzz, from the perspective of jurors,
Yeah.
all right, let's say we're sitting in the jury box.
Right.
Are jurors willing to embrace these people, or is there something about them that scares them away?
First of all, they're a criminal, so they lack credibility, and we're very skeptical of people who've been in prison, who've had time, who have a history of drug and alcohol abuse, who have broken the law. So we tend to take a step back and wonder, well, why are they doing this? What's their motivation? You know, when people enter into prison or jail, the first rule of thumb is, I'm going to talk to nobody. I'm going to mind my own business. I'm not going to speak about my crime. But on the flip side, you're with someone for 8 to 22 hours a day, and you got to talk. It's a human need. So it kind of brings juries back and forth. Do we trust this person? We don't. Let's just listen to what they have to say.
But isn't it astonishing how, and when I was a defense attorney for so many years, and I'd say to my clients in jail, here's the rule. Don't talk to anybody.
Right.
But they talk. Why do we talk?
You know, we have a human need to talk. We have a human need to communicate. And in those jail cells, you get pretty lonely, you get pretty bored, you get pretty frustrated, and you have an emotional need to connect with somebody. I say, come and talk to me when I was in jail as a psychologist. I say, come and talk to me as your psychologist. But, you know, there's a trust issue there. A lot of people feel that even if they talk to their psychologist, it's going to come back to haunt them. So people are very, very skeptical of who they talk to, and they try not to trust anyone. But here we hear about a jailhouse snitch that's saying, she talked to me, she told me everything.
Dr. Buzz, let's put aside for the moment that this man has been brutally murdered, because what I'm hearing is not anything you wouldn't hear from any teenager, right? They always want to live somewhere else. They always have issues, or almost always, with their parents.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100%. When you're an adolescent, you want freedom, you want power, you feel powerless because your parents are making these demands on you. You want to have choices, and you want to do and go out and be with whoever you are with. In this situation, she was in isolation. They had recently moved to this area. She didn't like it. Her parents had recently been divorced a year ago, so that was a conflicted marriage. She meets this guy at 15 years old, and he becomes the focus of her existence. She doesn't have a good bonding with the school system. Her father now has met this new woman, and it's a very romantic relationship, and he's consumed by that. So here she is with this guy who's telling her, look, I'll get rid of your father. I want you. I love you. I want to take care of you. He's the seducer. He's the predator. He's the one who starts to control her, this 15-year-old girl. That's what I'm hearing, Jamie.
The question, though, is how a situation spins so wildly out of control, because of course most children of divorce don't find themselves at a defense table, and even if she's not guilty in this case, Buzz, she certainly was involved with the young man who is. So how do we get to this point in a family dynamic?
The unfortunate thing is I'm making the assumption that the divorce was very conflicted. No child growing up should ever be faced with going home to a conflicted household. And we know divorces sometimes are extremely conflicted.
But there's conflict in every family, Buzz.
There is. It's how that family, how those two parents handle the conflict. It seems like in this household, not only has she moved from a place where she felt a sense of belonging, a safe place, a place that she returned to after the murder. Not only was she now in isolation in this apartment complex, but she did not have close relationships within the school. There was no school bonding. She's with this guy who's 20, she's 15. The father does not want her to see him, but he seems to have diminished parenting skills at this point. The father seems to lack coping skills. He's focusing in on the behavior. He's not focusing in on the underlying psychological behavior. This woman needed structure. This adolescent needed direction. She needed help. It wasn't forthcoming. She sought out an individual who was very much abusive, controlling. He was the seducer. As I said, he was the corruptor. We should be focusing on him.
You are so fired up, Dr. Buzz. I don't think I've ever seen you, and you're always passionate, but I don't think I've ever seen you this fired up. All right, well, don't worry. We have a whole lot more time to talk.